Ugly Duckling Oboes is dedicated to the development of young oboe players. They provide quality handmade oboe reeds, private lessons, and high-quality oboe sales, rentals, and consignments. The oboes that they rent are conservatory mechanism oboes that include the left-hand F key and low B flat key. All are maintained by oboe-specific technicians. In-person lessons are available, as well as virtual lessons for students who live outside the geographic area or have transportation and scheduling challenges. They also offer online college audition coaching for high school juniors and seniors who plan to audition to be music majors. Visit uglyducklingoboes.com for more details on how you can set up yourself for success and sign up for their newsletter. That's uglyducklingoboes.com.
Consider buying your processed oboe and bassoon cane from those friendly folks over at Barton Cane. Processed with care and precision for your everyday reed-making needs. Take the pain and injury out of reed-making by letting Barton Cane do the hard, repetitive, boring stuff. Free up time for practicing, happy hours, hikes, baking, and spending time with friends and family. Barton Cane, here for you. Visit www.bartoncane.com.
Hi, I'm Galit Kaunitz.
And I'm Jackie Wilson, and you're listening to Double Reed Dish,
a podcast for oboists,
bassoonists,
and the people who love them.
Hello.
Hello. Is that Mrs. Doubtfire?
I was referencing Mrs. Doubtfire. Okay. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Which goes with our scary theme, because you know me, I make a lot of pop culture references in like my teaching, and my theory students have started like responding, but like in the context of like, oh, my mom loves that movie, or like, oh, my mom loves that song. My mom always listened to that song growing up. It's like, oh my God, I'm scared. I'm old. It's Halloween and I'm old scary lady.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that you have now been put in the category of your students' parents.
Yes, phased out.
Well, I have been like, oh, I played this piece. Look, I played this piece in 2001. Look at this date. And then the student will be like, I wasn't even alive in 2001. I hadn't even. And I'm like, go away, I hate you.
Well, we're going with the scary theme for this episode because it is October 15th, which means if you are listening to this, the day this episode comes out, you have until midnight to submit your Halloween reed decorating contest entry.
If you don't, forever hold your peace.
That's right, because we have amazing prizes donated from AC/DC Reeds, Barton Cane, Chemical City Double Reeds, Janet Ingle, Jiffy Reeds, Cassandra Bassoon, Midwest Musical Imports, Mountain Peak Music, and Wildflower Reeds. And they expect to be entertained for their donation, y'all. So you better, live up to the hype that we got them to donate all these prizes.
Show up or shove out.
That's right. Wow. So today, I thought we could go with our last episode in October. I thought we could go with the scary theme, and we did a call for participation with our listeners, but let me share with you a little bit of what has inspired the scariness in my life lately. And I will disclose, we are pre-recording this dish a little ahead of time. And so by the time this actually gets shared with people, this concert will have happened, or I probably wouldn't talk about it beforehand. But I am touring this Conarchi concerto right now, right? And I'm going here, there, and everywhere and playing it. It's a piece I'm very familiar with at this point, and I'm in a very comfortable mode of maintaining, and I kind of know what I need to keep the memorization and the type of reads I need. I just was like, yeah, regarding the chi, I'm in a really nice, sweet spot. Cool. Just put it on cruise control and, keep on going. Mm-hmm. And so my upcoming concert is with the Coeur d'Alene Symphony in Idaho. And when I booked this performance, the conductor said to me, well, we have a little extra time on this concert, and it would be really fabulous if we filled it out. So what would you think about doing Weber Hungarian as like a little encore-ish thing after the Chi, like a planned encore? And this was over a year ago. And so I was like, sure, yeah, whatever. Well, I don't care. Fine.
As you would. Yeah,
That's
who cares?
future Jackie's problem. And so this concert is a week from when we're recording this. And about 3 weeks ago, the conductor texts me something about arranging the rehearsals, logistics, whatever, and then says, thank God he mentioned to say, and we're still on for Weber, right? And I went, I definitely did not forget that I said I would play Weber Hungarian. Okay. And this panic attack brought to you by Carl Maria von Weber. And so thank God it's a piece I've played a million times since I was like 18 years old. I can definitely I was like, yes, I can get this together in a month. Thank God it was not a week, a day. Who knows when it could have been? And that it's not I don't know how I let that slip through the cracks.
That is terrifying.
It's so scary. And it changed everything because I need more practice time. I need different types of reads. I need to be ready to play 25 minutes of a concerto instead of 10 minutes of a concerto. It really changed everything. And yes, it was a very terrifying experience. And so I thought we could, I thought it could be a share our trauma episode theme, inspired by that experience.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I mean, you got it in time. It's gonna be great, but like that moment where your stomach drops and you're just like, oh no.
It will be fine. I'm feeling really good about the piece as it stands. But yes, I got that text and I was actually in the middle of like a meeting, and just the urge to like stand up or walk, like run out of the room straight to your instrument and be like, oh my God, I don't even know where the score to this piece is. And like, gotta dig through. My sheet music is still like post-COVID piles in a filing cabinet. And so I'm like, oh my God, I gotta figure out where this pieces and get it dusted off. But
it's awful. So I have a scary moment. I have a couple. Like one of them is reed related and one of them is instrument related. Do you want to hear both?
Give it to me.
Okay. So the reed related one was when I was doing my doctorate. I remember being asked to sub with the Tallahassee Symphony. And of course, it was always really exciting to get to, sub with a professional orchestra when you're still a student. And you're like, heck yeah, I'm going to do that. And then I remember like feeling really prepared for rehearsal, and first rehearsal went really well. And then I like showed up for the Saturday morning rehearsal. And I was digging around in my bag and I realized I forgot my reeds. All of my reeds. There was no like spare reed case or anything. It was just all gone. But luckily, my teacher, Eric Olson, was playing principal. So I said, Dr. Olson, I forgot my reeds. Do you think I could borrow one? And he was like, oh. He gave me a reed to play on. Knock on wood. I haven't. That's something that has not happened again. Something you only do once.
Those stories are so important to tell, though, because now as a teacher, when students do stuff like that, it's like, come on. And so being reminded of our student-y antics that we ourselves committed, I always think is good perspective to not lose, because yes, we were all there once.
Yeah. The other story I was thinking of was when I realized my English horn was cracked in the middle of rehearsal for Dvorak New World Symphony.
That is scary.
So I was in my hotel room like with my repair person on the phone, just like screaming expletives, and like my hands were shaking, applying the glue. It was so scary. It ended up being fine. I did it right. I got all the keys back on. It ended up working just fine, but wow, was that scary.
Holy moly.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, let's turn this Halloween themed episode into a trauma dump.
Yeah, here's what here is fuel for your nightmares,
Exactly.
everyone. Well, we got some amazing responses when we asked our listeners on social media to their scary read moments.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with Trisha, who said, tuned band at a concert, then raised the horn for the first note of the piece and smashed the reed into my teeth.
Oh, no.
Done that before.
I've never done it in a concert, but I definitely have broken some reeds on my teeth. A concert sounds pretty terrifying. Well, in similar scary experiences with reeds and teeth, Marjan says, lost my rest count. Shocked when I heard it's my time to play. Bounced my reed against my teeth.
This is too common.
Yes, this is scary on top of scary.
Kara said, my reed cracked down to the collar just before my jury. I didn't have another.
Oh, Kara.
Heartbreak.
Is Dr. Olson nearby, Kara?
Honestly. Dr. Olson?
I hear he's good in a pinch to go get a read from.
He will roll his eyes, but he will also give you a read.
Hey oboists! Have you ever found it difficult to sort out when and how to find a new oboe or English horn? Oboe Chicago streamlines the process, providing personal and professional consultation and a large selection of lovely instruments. The process feels comfortable and thorough. Selection includes Effleuré of Paris, Howarth of London, Covey oboes, and Fox products. For a current listing of Oboe Chicago's selection, please visit www.oboechicago.com. For a credit of $100 towards shipping, mention Double Reed Dish when you call or email Shauna. That's oboechicago.com.
Chemical City Double Reeds is a full-service double reed shop specializing in the sale of instruments, cane, accessories, and sheet music. Double Reed Dish listeners can enjoy free shipping with code DRDISH. Visit them in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, or online at www.chemicalcityreeds.com.
We are delighted to welcome to Double Reed Dish Nicholas Tisherman, Assistant Principal of the Colorado Symphony. Welcome, Nicholas.
Thank you for having me.
So we always start our interviews in the same way. We want to hear how you came to the instrument. When and why did you start playing the oboe?
Yeah, I started when I was 8 years old. I come from a family of musicians, and pretty much everyone in the family plays clarinet, except for me. But my mom played the oboe through college. She got a minor in music. So that's where I got the idea from. And I knew I wanted to play a woodwind instrument, but I didn't really want to do the same thing as all of my family. So the oboe just seemed like the perfect amount of departure from the norm. And I just had always loved the sound. I was really attracted to it. It was just different. It was unique. I loved that no one else wanted to play it. I just took to it.
Now we question that choice. Just kidding.
Well, when you first start going through elementary school where I grew up, you start on recorder, and you've got you blow into this little tube. It has 6 holes, and then you switch to oboe, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so similar. And then years later, I realized, oh my God, this is way harder and very different.
So talk us through how you made your decision to be a professional musician. Was it something you always knew, or was it something that kind of hit you like a truck one day?
I think what served me best was never having the goal of being a professional musician exactly, but more so just trying to answer the question of how far can I go with this? And um, I'm even when I was in fourth, fifth grade, I think I had the wisdom somehow to realize that I probably wasn't the best oboist out there. I probably wasn't even second or third best. So I should probably just hedge my bets and work as hard as I can and see what happens. I think not having that goal as, anything that was so concrete, that's what really helped me, I think, get the farthest.
Mhm.
So when did the idea of like majoring in music and pursuing it in higher ed, how did that come into that mindset you just described? And could you maybe talk us through where you pursued your education and what informed those decisions?
hmm it was around like ninth or tenth grade that I really felt like I could get serious about this, and it was the first time I really felt like I was, making decisions to pursue something in music at the expense of some other interest. I stopped doing competitive swimming in the summers, and I started doing music camps and music programs. Um, but I think it was uh yeah, going into 10th grade, I guess it was. My brother and I have a twin brother who plays the clarinet. So we were always like excited about music, and we were always practicing our craft kind of in a parallel fashion, simultaneously. But I think he had better guidance earlier, and he was kind of steered towards, growing up outside of New York. He was steered towards studying in Manhattan with some really good teachers, and looking into some of the pre-college programs that were offered there. And I thought, hey, that sounds fun too. I want to do that. So we both managed to get ourselves into Juilliard's like pre-college program, and that's where I first really was around so many other people who were really gunning for a at least a collegiate career in music, and that's where the idea just seemed so tantalizing and so accessible. So that's really where things started to open up for me, and I started to really have some aspirations to train at a conservatory. I was someone who was, pretty good in school and had intellectual interests, but I also just like to focus on one thing. And I realized that I was different than my very own twin brother in that regard. And at the end of high school, I had to kind of focus on me and what exactly I wanted. So it came down to a couple options when, the audition process was all done at the end of my senior year. And I made the choice that best, of the options I had, the choice that best aligned with my interests was going to New England Conservatory and studying with John Farillo up in Boston, which just turned out to be such an excellent decision. I felt really at home there. I was really challenged there. Um, I still have a really great relationship with John Farillo and Anne Gabriel, who also taught on a kind of rotating basis, coming in a couple times each semester. And yeah, that's how I kind of, was driven to Boston, and it just turned out to be an excellent choice for me.
Talk us through your journey after that. Like, how did you get to where you are today?
A lot of work and a lot of luck. I I I had been just again seeing how far I could go with the professional audition process, starting like about my junior year of college at NEC. And I think I must have taken a few auditions that year, and they just, it was like burning the first five pancakes or so. I was like wasting money. I was, just getting nowhere. I felt like performance anxiety was just like crushing my my aspirations to, get anywhere in these auditions. And but then my final year of college, things started to work out a little bit better. And unlike a lot of people, I actually had pretty kind of consistent results and growth of my results. Um, which is really, really encouraging because a lot of times you hear people like, oh, I got to the finals of this one audition and didn't advance for 3 years. And then I got to the semis and then didn't advance for 2 more years. But I was advancing pretty regularly. And that was like so exciting. It was just so validating because I had done so much work to that end over the course of my undergraduate career. Um, but I got really, really close in one audition, and I was so thrilled about that. And by that time, I decided to keep pursuing music studies and performance studies, and continue to kind of incubate in a master's program. And I decided I wanted to change from NEC. So I moved all the way across the country, and I attended the Colburn School for a year. And that was right when Colburn was just starting this like revolving door at the oboe faculty position. Because Ariana Gez had just left her post at the Philharmonic, and it was before they had hired Ramon Ortega, and Mingjia Liu was there for a little bit, and now Eugene Isotov is there. But the year I was there, I was really lucky enough to study with someone I knew really well, and that was Anne Gabriel. So that really made the transition a lot easier during a time in my life where there was a lot going on personally, and it was very challenging even outside of music. To have her kind of steadiness there really helped me with that time, and that transition for anyone, I think in any field, going from college where you know what you're studying, you know what you're doing, to breaking into the professional world and getting that first job or just getting your foot in some door is so hard. So my graduate studies at Colburn really helped continue the success that I had in my undergraduate, and I got really, really, really fortunate to win my position in Denver at the end of that first year of grad school. So I left my degree and I moved to Colorado.
Before we kind of hear more about embarking on your professional path, you mentioned that at the beginning of your auditioning experiences, you felt that performance anxiety played a significant role or was a barrier. And then you saw kind of tangible returns on your or regular success, I guess. And so I wonder what was the difference, or what how you overcame that, or what methods you used to try to deal with that barrier.
Absolutely. Part of it was just experience. Part of it was just doing it more and more, and just getting used to the ridiculousness that is, flying to a new city on your own dime, staying in some hotel you've never been to, and walking through the catacombs of some backstage just to be blinded by the lights of this huge concert hall that you're in by yourself with this gigantic screen in front of you, trying to somehow make music in this really, really bizarre atmosphere, and to do that successfully. So part of it was experience, but also I had a couple of things just really click my last year of undergraduate. And I was taking the two most random classes you would ever think of that really seemed to help me. One was a class on body mapping. Body mapping is kind of a derivative of Alexander technique. So it involves just the noticing how you're using your own body, how the use of the self, and using your physical abilities efficiently, And also, of course, your air system. It was just so important playing an oboe or any woodwind instrument. Um, and that also had a lot to do with just studying awareness and what is called in body mapping inclusive awareness, which basically is your kind of state of focus in which you can focus on one thing, but you still have kind of an awareness of your periphery. So you're not kind of blocking things out, but you're able to let things in, but still focus on what's most important. I realized that a lot of those exercises that we were doing in class were really translating to performance. I had a lot of issues with performance anxiety in my third year of undergraduate, and a lot of that was at least in much better shape when I was taking that body mapping course and learning those skills for the first time. Um, I will say that performance anxiety for me, and I think for a lot of people, is kind of an up and down battle. It's never something that you can just kind of, sign, sealed, put in the closet, you're done, fix that problem. I think it's always something that is can fluctuate, and just being in tune with those fluctuations, maybe for whatever reason you've got a stretch of concerts and you've been really on edge about them, so just being aware of that for myself was really helpful. And then the other even more random class that I was taking as like an elective when I had finished a bunch of my credits to graduate in senior year of college was a class on Renaissance improvisation. And I had done, a little bit of improvising just in the form of, improvising ornaments and Baroque music, which is so much fun to me. My grandfather was a jazz musician, so when my first teacher was his my grandfather's colleague, and he would say in this New York accent, he'd like, "Nicky, your grandfather was a jazz musician. Add some notes." And he would just take me through like Handel and Telemann, just ad nauseum. It was the best training I got in early high school. But I always had a really big soft spot for Baroque ornamentation. And so to work with this early music expert and who was a recorder player, and it was like a class of people who were jazz majors themselves, and also people who had never even improvised a note off of a page, all kind of trying this out for some for the very first time. It was so cool to see all the discoveries that were happening. And for me, it was just so amazing for the first time, play by ear and not play from a score. And that just, I found myself just skipping all these steps and somehow going like right from the back of my brain out with my expression and with my playing. And it was just this eureka moment. And, so incorporating body mapping skills and incorporating improvisation skills actually really did a huge thing for me in my performance anxiety.
Do you feel like musical improvisation helps with like the day of the audition, like preparing you for all of the weird, crazy things that can happen the day of the audition? And then I want to transition to asking you about the audition that you of the job that you're currently in.
I think incorporating skills in improvisation can help on the day of, if that's been a part of your process and a part of your practice, and you have either created exercises for yourself or are using exercises regularly that kind of get you into this state of losing those inhibitions that sometimes appear when we're reading from a score. So I would say you probably, if you haven't been doing it, warming up that day by, improvising on a jazz standard is probably not going to help all that much. But, putting that into your daily routine, I think is very, very valuable. And trying to always connect to the music that you're reading off of a score. Um,
Hmm.
which, now that I say that, I really should add this kind of thing to my warm up. Things like just, taking a single interval and, improvising something from that, or taking a single mood or character and just, trying to demonstrate that and express that without any score to refer to. Those little exercises can at least kind of introduce you to this amazing eureka moment of wow, there's music that's like inside of me that can go straight out of my bell. How can I do that with Brahms Violin Concerto, Bartok Concerto for Orchestra? Um, and speaking of those, I think I had to play both of those when I took my audition in Denver. Uh,
Yeah, tell us about that day. What
it
was
was
that like?
more than just that day. I think it was a week and a half, really.
Oh, wow.
Because I had these two auditions in a row for very similar positions. One for the now defunct San Antonio Symphony for
Mhm.
second and associate, and the other for Denver for the Colorado Symphony's second and assistant principal position. They were within the same week, and uh, it was like the very end of my first year at Colburn, and I had just gotten a chance to sub with the LA Phil, which was so exciting. And it was like the first time I actually had like a little bit of money in my bank account, and I just blew it all on flights and Airbnbs. Because I had been so burnt out that year from just adjusting to this new environment and to grad school. Um, I really had no plans over the summer. I was like gonna work a job at a festival, not really playing. So I was like, you know what? These last two auditions, just gonna send it and see what happens. So yeah, I blew like all the money I had and spent a few days in San Antonio, and I felt really good about that. And that was sort of my main focus. And I did really, really well. I was the runner-up for that audition. And
Wow.
then I spent the next, I think it was probably 5, maybe 6 full days in Denver before the audition. Again, like all my money went into that Airbnb. And I just practiced and made reads for like, yeah, 4 or 5 days straight. Um, I don't even think I noticed there were mountains in Denver. You can see him. You can see them from the street, and I didn't even notice them for like 3 days. So yeah, I was making like 3 or 4 reads a day, just trying to find something that would work at altitude, and just practicing, keeping my nose to the grindstone, and trying to just stay as focused as I possibly could. So I would say that really, really prepared me on the day of. I played in the earliest round, so I played at like probably 9 a.m. Um, I remember standing around my now current place of work. Like I couldn't find the stage door for a while, and I was like so stressed. Um, but I found it, and I played my round, and I felt really good about it, and I advanced. However, the semifinals weren't for another several hours, so I even went back to my Airbnb and practiced a little bit more. I was feeling good, and I went back and played my semifinal. I was like one of the first of probably 12 or 13 to go, and I didn't feel great about it, but I felt like I had at least, tried to use my full expressive range and, done what I could. But I knew that if I got one more chance in that audition, I just really had to nail it. So I waited and I waited, and I took a walk and I waited more, and they advanced me and a couple other people to another round. And I was like, okay, here we go. I've been making like 3, 4 reads a day for the past week. I now have like 1 or 2 reads that actually work. We're gonna use them. No, no, no scarcity mindset here. Like we're using the reads we have. We're gonna play our heart out. Let's see what happens. And they took me to another round. where we played with the principal oboe, who's Peter Cooper, who's fabulous. And when I was a kid, I think I was like 9 or 10, and my mom bought me for my birthday like this lime green CD player and two CDs. One was like Cleveland Orchestra and Zell playing like Haydn symphonies. The other was Peter Cooper's solo CD where he records the Strauss Concerto and David Mulliken's Concerto, who was a yeah, a
An
beautiful
iconic
recording.
recording.
Like there's nothing
Yeah.
better for a young oboist to listen to, and I listen to that thing every single night. My mom would have to like come in and like pry the headphones off me when I fell asleep, which is probably like during the second movement of the Strauss, which came after the whole Mulliken Concerto. Um, and so that was the first time I'd ever like I'd never been in contact with Peter. I'd never met him. And so it was like the committee, screen, Peter, and me. And I like shook his hand and kind of whispered to him like, "Hey, I really like your CD." And he didn't really know what to do with that. But I figured I had to say something.
You played it
Yeah,
real
I played
cool.
it super cool. I didn't know if I was gonna get cut. I didn't know if that was like the last time I'd ever see him. Um, but they had me play another round with another I think it was down to like two people at that point. Um Unbeknownst to me, one of Peter's really amazing students up at CU. And I was just like, la la la, this is great. I've worked really hard and I feel really good about this. Like whatever happens, happens. Um which I guess is a good place to be when you're at the end of an audition like that. And mind you, it's like 10 p.m. at this point. I played my first round at like 9 a.m. Um, and I don't know what's happening on the other side of the screen. Can't control that, but I played my best. And what I remember from that round is that when you're playing, when I was playing with someone I'd never played with before, and I was in this mode of being so focused that entire day and that entire week, that every little thing jumped out at me like oh my gosh, I was like a, a tiny bit out of tune with Peter on our octaves and Brahms too for like half a second, and it just felt like it was so out of tune for like forever. So I think that was indicative of my kind of heightened senses at that point. And anyway, so it was an amazing experience, and I feel so grateful and so lucky that they could have chosen any of those last three or four people, but they chose me, and I've tried to do the best job I can on the job since then.
Thank you. That's an amazing story. You had mentioned the day of the audition, getting there early to deal with reads and the altitude and the high level of expectation associated with the opportunity. And so I wonder what that transition was like after you got the position and this kind of became your new normal. Can we hear about that learning curve?
Yeah, I still don't feel like I've really figured out high altitude reads, but
Oh man, I was gonna ask you
yeah,
about that
people
later.
come to me as like this source of information about high altitude oboe playing, and um, I've tried a lot of things. Um, And I think what it all just boils down to is having a really good idea of what you want your read to do, and to be able to be flexible enough to adjust things ever so slightly to achieve that wherever you are and whatever the read is doing. Um, so when I first got here, it's different than just playing the audition when you're just by yourself trying to do what you do. Now you're on the job. Now you have a whole orchestra and a whole wind section to try to react to, adapt to. You just want to fit in as much as possible and, bring something to the table. Um, and yeah, I think I've tried so many different things with my reads, and um I think that the truth lies in just doing a little bit of a lot of different things. So, for example, yeah, well, also what I will say is that the window that you're searching for is a lot smaller. Like, making an oboe read anywhere is a very difficult endeavor. That window becomes a lot smaller when you're up at altitude. Um, so cane selection has become a super important part of my process.
Mm.
Knowing what cane will do more of the work for me and vibrate better for me, and being exceptionally picky in a way that I never had to be when I was in school, when I was at sea level. Um, Probably could have helped when I was in LA and it's a lot drier over there. But you need the breed to do a lot of the work for you. And yeah, when I found my reed that I took my audition on, it had some qualities of just having a lot of vibration, but also a lot of kind of cushion for me at the same time. And I felt a lot of that came from the cane. So it became this search of how do I get that kind of cane again? Where does it come from? Um, is it really like a one in a million piece of cane, or can I figure out a way to search for this and find this on a consistent basis? And talking with colleagues and hey, what cane are you using? What do you look for in your cane? Um, and yeah, just trying a bunch of stuff. And uh, so I think what some of my colleagues use is cane that's a lot harder and a lot denser. And sometimes that works for me. Sometimes that produces a reed that is more likely to kind of crack during the process or just is a little bit too much when all's said and done. So again, doing a little bit of that, finding cane that is, shifting my parameters just slightly, um, and finding what really works for me. Um, you can also tie a little bit shorter at altitude, finish a little bit longer at altitude. Again, just, take it with a grain of salt. Take one pill, not the whole bottle, is something that my colleague Peter says a lot. Which is just fantastic advice.
That's probably good advice in general.
Yes, yes, yeah. I think he'll tell you. You've probably interviewed him already, but he'll tell you that I think that came from like a golf lesson that he took once. But great advice. Um, yeah, doing a little bit of all the things I think is better than going way off in one direction with one parameter or one variable in your reed making. Um, the other thing is gouge at altitude. If you're trying to use cane that's a little bit smaller to get a comparatively larger opening, which you kind of lose a little bit when you go up from sea level. If you're using smaller cane and running it through the same bed with the same blade of your gouger, it's going to lop off the sides. And so what that does sometimes is it actually makes your piece of gouged cane has thinner sides and it actually gets a lot weaker or, just, unpredictable. Um, so that can actually have diminishing returns. And it took me way too long to figure that one out. I know Professor Cooper uses a smaller bed here at altitude, so the geometry is more similar when you're putting teeny tiny cane through it. Um, but again, for me, what's worked is using cane that's on the smaller side and also changing a couple other variables just slightly.
So, would you be willing to share with us like the specifics of your setup, like your shape and the diameter you like and your gout? Are you using, I assume, a furlough
Yeah, I
gouge?
have a couple of Harvard double reeds machines. I use them pretty interchangeably over the years. Once I tried to use one as a pre-gouger, um, I think that better just to use it as your main gouge. But yeah, I have two of those machines. I run a lot of Rigotti cane that I select with really, really, really picky standards for cane that's a little bit more yellow and smoother grain, something that will really do some vibrating for me. so that I don't have to kind of put that into my reed itself. Um, I'm also using actually some vintage cane I got from my colleague's secret stash that of sea level diameter cane that he decided he just probably wasn't going to get to in his career. And yeah, so Peter sold a bunch, like boxes and boxes and boxes of cane a few years back, and I bought some, and only now am I really starting to kind of work through it and figure out what exactly works for me. Um, yeah, so uh, those two batches are working for me really well. I run it through my gougers designed by John Ferrillo, which if I place the blade in the right spot, usually work pretty well. Um, and when I finish that gouge, what I'm looking for is a center measurement that is not too thin, not too thick. For me, that's right around kind of 59 hundredths of a millimeter in the center. If I get to 60, 61, that to me is going to produce a very rigid reed. If I go lower than 58, I'm getting a reed that's kind of flat and just not substantive enough. And then on the sides, hoping to keep it around 48. If I go 45 or below or erratically on the sides, that's when I really lose the ability to predict what the opening is going to do, how it's going to take my air, um, if it's going to be able to support a good sound, um, and really, close down on the plaque in a symmetrical way. Uh, so that piece of cane, I will shape. I have used a recently purchased Gilbert One from RDG in the past. When we were in school, there were all these like old Gilberts that were once owned by Mr. Ferrilla, just kind of floating around the studio and just trading hands every so often. Um, but right now, he is actually in the process of finalizing his shaper tips that have been in production, in gestation for gosh, decades now. So I'm actually using a prototype of that. It's kind of between the middle variation and the most narrow variation, which is still kind of a large shape on the spectrum of shaper tips. But I tried it when I visited him in Boston recently, and I purchased it. I was able to purchase it from him, and that is what's working for me. If it ever stopped working, I'd probably go to one of his shaper tips you can buy commercially on his website, or I'd probably go to. I've heard actually the Gilbert ones now are a little wider, so I'd have to ask around. But I've also used in the past a Mac Plus, a Mac Plus Plus. I really haven't experimented too much with shaper tips, and I'd like to learn a lot more about the different variations and what's out there and what variables your shaper tip really can affect in the finished reeds. But that's what I use, a prototype of John Ferrillo's newest shape. What else is there? Tying on staples that are mostly Glotan staples. Which are, I've done a lot of experimenting with 47 versus 46 millimeter staples, and what I found again is that changing my staple length just was going off too far in one direction, and 47 just allows me to create a sound that's deeper more consistently. If I go shorter, I lose that depth, even if I do get a little bit more of an up to pitch read. It's a little bit harder at 47, but anyway, I know I'm boring someone now, so yeah, I've experimented with Marigo staples. I don't play on a Marigo, but I have noticed that they do have a little bit more depth to them. They result for me in a read that's a little bit flatter, so I've used the 46 millimeter ones. So maybe somewhere in the future I can find something that feels more at home like the glotans, but at least gets a little bit more depth in the sound by itself. That doesn't kind of flatten my reeds the way I felt uh, the the Mario staples that I have tried um, work for me, and something that's consistent, which is huge and staple choice.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's my setup. I play a couple different oboes right now. I have a Loré that was based on a design of one of Ferrillo's old B series oboes. So it's a B series
Mm.
copy made in like probably 20, 2014, 15. Wow, it's old already. Um, and I play on a Covey oboe that is just gorgeous, made by Ginger Ramsey down in Georgia, which is really fabulous. And some of those American makers like Laubin and Covey, who took some of the Lorrays that were really great and tried to improve upon them. Um, I think very often there's something really special there. So yeah, I have a really unique Covey and a very unique Lorray, and yeah, I use both of them for different things, and that's where I feel most at home, where I have a depth of tone, but also a ring, if everything with the reeds goes right.
So your official position is second and assistant principal. And even though I know every orchestra's setup and roles is a little different, I would anticipate that means you do both principal and second oboe playing. And so I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about switching roles and what each role kind of means to you and how you approach that, being a good section player, that type of thing.
Yeah, I think for a lot of it, the skill set is the same. You have to be a sensitive musician. You have to be able to get around the entire instrument, control every range, every dynamic, and a full range of expression, no matter if you're playing principal or if you're playing second. Um, I will say, I think my skill set kind of going into my professional part of my career was uh, I think more developed in the special skills that make second oboe playing uh, my second oboe playing more um, excellent. I just ha having the humility to just say like whoever's next to me that's that's what's right. That's what I'm blending to. That is that's the pitch that I'm aiming for. And to just have that kind of selflessness, I think is where I hold a lot of strengths. Um, and then when I'm playing principal, I feel like I've really kind of developed this other skill set of just being able to lay it down and express myself more. And that's been a big area of growth that I've been working on since I've been on the job. So uh, they're both positions that have a lot in common, and a really great musician is going to do very well and make some beautiful things happen, regardless of that role. Um, but for me, I've been having more and more fun playing principal, and I'll play principal probably like, I don't know, 30% of the time. We can't rotate that much because we only have a three-person section.
Mm.
But it is just a blast now that I've gotten a little bit more comfortable with the orchestra, comfortable tuning the orchestra, leading the wind section, figuring out where to zig and where to zag with my colleagues when I'm sitting in the hot seat in the principal chair. Um, it's a lot of fun. And then kind of reminding myself that I have a very developed skill set playing second oboe too, and doing that role excellently is also very fun.
Can you share with us a favorite memory from a past performance?
Ooh, I one of my favorite conductors is Jaime Martin, who's a Spanish-born flute player. He played in Chamber Orchestra of Europe, sitting like 6 feet away from Claudio Abbado for his whole
Mm.
professional career, and then turned to conducting. Great musician, just super warm. Um, and whenever he's in town, it's so magical. So I just remember there's a great Shostakovich 5 that we did with him, and it was just fantastic. And everyone was just able to express themselves so beautifully, and at the same time, he really brought the orchestra together. It was just really fabulous. There's a lot of love coming from the podium, and we really tried to return that. So it's that kind of performance is always a really good memory for me. That's what comes to mind at least first.
What is your advice for a young musician who aspires to have a career like yours?
To a young musician who is aspiring to have a career like mine, I would say um, always keep going. Perseverance is the most important thing. But yeah, always seek to create beauty, and always try to recenter yourself in coming from the character of the music first, centering what you are trying to say above all else, because you'll skip a lot of steps that way. Um, always remembering that it's about the character, the mood of the piece, whatever emotion is expressed in the music. Start there, and then the technique will follow.
Nick, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. You are amazing, and we're so, so grateful to have this time with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast.
All right. Well, we hope you enjoyed that interview, and we hope that you are following us on social media, because as of tomorrow, all of our Halloween redecorating contest entries are going up, and it is time to vote. So do not miss your chance to check out all the hilarity and creativity of the entrants and be able to cast your vote. And thank you again to our sponsors for making this contest the biggest and best ever. And don't forget to rate and review on Spotify, wherever you listen, all that good stuff, so you don't miss a single episode, including our next forthcoming episode. Galit, who will we be speaking to?
We had a wonderful conversation with Elise Wagner, second bassoon with the Houston Symphony. Jackie, let's end this nerd parade.
Go make reads.